further education sector can play in addressing the major challenges Wales will face over the next decade, including achieving net zero, driving sustainable economic growth, adapting to rapid technological change, and responding to the evolving demands of public services. So before we begin, I'll quickly run just through a couple of housekeeping points. We are going to record the session, so please can you make sure that the microphones are turned off unless you're invited to speak. You can see probably that I think we're just touching about 100 people coming in on the session today, which is obviously fantastic. So we would also encourage then everybody to submit their questions through the presentation through the chat function, and you can do that through either English or Welsh, and we're going to try and obviously cover as many of those as possible. You'll also find a Welsh version of the presentation available for you to follow as we go through. So if I now hand over to David Hagendijk. So David is Chief Executive of Colegau Cymru, who will guide us through the 3 missions identified by the FE sector. Missions we believe the next Welsh Government should prioritise to support the further education and work-based learning sectors to deliver. After David's presentation, we'll open the floor for discussion. And with that, I'll pass over to David to present the Colegau Cymru Manifesto for 2026. I hope that sounds all okay, and let me know if there are any further questions. Okay, so over to you, David.
Great, thanks, John, and thank you to everyone for coming. There's 110 in the meeting, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you ever so much for your time this morning. So just a little bit about the manifesto, and then we'll get into the details. So we've deliberately tried to draw this manifesto through discussions with members, discussions with stakeholders. So it isn't a kind of long academic exercise. It's really about what are the practical lived experiences of learners, the practical challenges that the sector faces, and thinking ahead some of those kind of long-term challenges. And we're really clear, I think, that across all of this, there is no credible path for a stronger Wales that the next government can deliver that doesn't require a strong further education sector, a really strong FE and work-based learning sector delivering the kind of skills that we need. So we've come up with 3 missions, as John said, that we think are kind of core to what FE can help to deliver with the next government. And also, I should say as well, we've been really clear in the manifesto, this isn't just about the next government, it's also about MEDA and about other stakeholders all working together with the sector to deliver. So if Amy, I'm not controlling the slides, so I'm going to do a bit of a Chris Whitty thing where if hopefully someone can move the next the slide on for me, please. So we've got the 3 missions, as I said. So we've got the first mission around growing the economy, which is about equipping the workforce with the skills they need for a rapidly changing labour market. We've also got mission 2 on progression, participation and outcomes, and then mission 3 more around that kind of adult space and intergenerational inequality and poverty. And as John said, talking about that kind of second chance learning as well. So I'm going to go through each of them in turn and then touch a little bit on some of the how as well, just around some of the funding side. So the first one around growing the economy, you won't be surprised, I don't think, to hear or to see our first ask is around that vocational education and training strategy we've been calling for a couple of years since the publication of the Lusher review into vocational education and training qualifications. So we think this is absolutely key. And this isn't us calling for a strategy because that's what organisations like us do. We call for a strategy because it's, it sounds nice. It's actually because we think the vet system is incredibly fragmented. There are so many different actors, organisations, all doing slightly different things sometimes. And what it really lacks that coherence around what is the purpose, how do we deliver it, and how does it need to change? So you think you've got Welsh Government, you've got colleges, you've got MEDA, you've got independent training providers, you've got qualifications Wales awarding bodies, other regulators. The list is endless of the different organisations that have a stake in vocational education and training. There is nothing yet that brings it all together and helps to align. Now, we've made some progress with Welsh Government on this during this Senate term, but we need that commitment from whoever is the next government, and we need to be developed and delivered early. That needs to be underpinned by what we are calling a new future skills authority. I think, frankly, we don't really mind what it looks like. We don't really care what it's called. But I think the missing piece in the VET strategy, or our approach to vocational education and training, is understanding what the future skills needs of the labour market are. There was a great example in Australia, Job Skills Australia. If you take a look at their kind of work, they do some really interesting in-depth work, very transparent data publications that allows providers, governments, everybody else to have that longer term line of sight as to what the future skills needs are of the sector. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these bullet points because you hopefully have a chance to read the manifesto, but I will just touch on a few more of these if that's okay. The first one is around the extra one to mention really is around the apprenticeship program. Now, we think apprenticeships, work-based learning is absolutely key as part of delivering that broader kind of options for learners and employers. We saw in Keir Starmer last week talking about a new commitment in England around apprenticeships and around higher education participation. So we're calling for the government to recommit to a new apprenticeship program with 125,000 target over the next 4 years. That's quite a sizable increase. At the moment, it's 100,000 target over a 5-year parliamentary term. We're calling for 125,000 apprenticeships delivered over a 4-year term. And that is a big shift. It's a big change. It's a step up in what we're currently delivering. But I think when we talk to young people, the demand for apprenticeships is absolutely there. I think we need to do much more in terms of employer brokerage, employer incentives and support, which is what MEDA's already talking. Obviously, MEDA's talking about some of this in their consultation. Alongside this, then, is colleges having a much more central role in delivering new employability programs and employability support. We are anchor institutions. We help deliver skills. We can bring together health support as well. So I think there's a really important role that colleges can have in delivering employability. This goes beyond Jobs Growth Wales and those kind of interventions. It's that broader package of support we deliver for learners, but also access in our own communities as well. And then finally on this slide, the two bottom ones really are, I think, about looking to how can we deliver different types of provision in the face of quite a rapidly changing labour market. So, for example, we think colleges should be delivering more at levels 4 and 5. There should be options for learners to be able to come in and do more at levels 4 and 5 in specific where there is specific local and regional economic need, that we can come in and do shorter programs, 2 years, to be able to get those higher access, adults get access to higher skills. And we also think we need to make that change, that step change towards how do we offer shorter bite-sized modular-based courses and provision, thinking about micro-credentials, thinking about different types of delivery in order to upskill and reskill more rapidly in what I think is what we all accept is going to be a hugely changed labour market and economy over the next 5-10 years. And I think we need to think about how we deliver and what we deliver and what we do differently. Then on to mission 2. Which is around participation, progress and outcomes. Participation in particular has been a key part of the debate in the last couple of years. I think there's a risk sometimes that becomes quite a narrow focus and it becomes about participation in higher education, given the fall in numbers of Welsh domiciled learners going to university. That's really, really important part of the conversation. And I think colleges recognise our responsibility to support those learners who want to go to university to make that step into institutions. But there's a broader conversation about participation as well that goes, we think, is pre-16 as well as into adults as well. So the first thing we want the next government to do is really to commit properly to a new 14 to 19 learning and progression pathway. There's some really good work going on already between schools and colleges, delivering vocational provision, delivering things like the junior apprenticeship program, etc. But this, I think, is a key space for us. 16 is a false divide. By the time you get to 16, you've finished your GCSEs and the level 2 qualifications. You're potentially it is potentially a bit too late, or you probably potentially lost a year or two where you might want that broader pathway and that broader curriculum offer. The new VCSEs are part of that in the future. But what really underlines this, I think, is much stronger partnership between schools and colleges to work together at a local level to offer a broader based curriculum for learners at 14 to 16, leading on to those kind of progression pathways and at 19 as well. So we know you go around colleges in most parts of Wales, there are already that kind of brilliant work going on where colleges are taking hundreds, if not thousands of learners each year to bring them in to do like maybe a day a week on a vocational provision, but it's patchy. It's not certainly not universal access, and it's not funded particularly well either. And I think you talk to most people involved in the sector for some period of time, they will say we used to do this really, really well in Wales, and funding ripped up some of that. And so it's actually, I think, about looking at what we used to do well and what we can build on now as well. We have got some, as part of that as well, I think, is recognizing the importance of learners having access to independent advice and high quality independent advice and guidance in that as they're making some of those big decisions about their futures at those key transition points. We know Careers Wales rather have been under huge financial pressure over the last few years, but I think the next 4 years we really need to see a real increase in investment in that part of the sector and learners being able to access the kind of options that they need. We also need perhaps a more difficult message, and one that we're not expecting all political parties to jump on for election, but I think it's really important, is this review of the sustainability of school sixth forms. We spend an awful lot of money at post-16 education, but we do need to review to what extent school sixth forms in certain areas are sustainable. What is the evidence? What does the evidence say about the numbers that a sixth form needs to be sustainable, and also to be able to offer that breadth of choice to learners in a local area? This is not us saying school sixth forms shouldn't be part of the mix. Of course, they should, absolutely essential for different types of learners. But what is sustainable, and where is that choice for learners in terms of the access to a broad-based curriculum? And then just talking a bit about barriers as well, barriers to participation and progression. One issue I think you just can't really see past is the importance of learner travel, and the importance of that learners being able to access the travel that they need to be able to simply get to college on time. The number of learners we talk to will tell us about, being slightly outside a catchment area to get support, or being buses being so full that they go past them at the bus stop, all those kind of challenges. We know this is an issue right across Wales in every different type of community. So we do need a longer term sustainable solution to the issue of learner travel. All parties talk about it. We don't think the pilot is going to really deliver what's needed. We need the next government to really commit to a long-term solution. And then as well around the progression and retention, things like the value of pastoral coaches and the value of funding for mental health and wellbeing provision in colleges. We know learners have changed significantly since the pandemic. They're coming in with more mental health problems, more mental health challenges. They're coming in perhaps with behaviour that's a couple of years below what we were used to seeing. But they need more support, and that costs money, of course. But this is about support that enables them to stay in college, to continue learning, and to progress with their education. So we're really putting the learner front and centre in terms of some of the support that we think that we know they are telling us that they need. And linked to that, of course, is the importance as well of supporting learners with additional learning needs. At the moment, there's a significant shortfall in funding, and the consequence of that is we're not able to offer learners the support, the full breadth of support that they need with additional learning needs. And we're really putting that key to the manifesto, and also in terms of our budget ask this time round for the current Welsh Government. And then finally on this one, well, talking about tithe and the enabling learners to be able to access tithe provision, but also some of the obviously the access we need to be able to deliver, colleges play their role in delivering 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050. We know we've got a crucial role to play in that, and we know we're on a journey as a sector, but we don't want to lose sight of the importance of that key target. Then on to mission 3, which is I think there's a risk sometimes we think about FE as thinking about young people. Obviously vital part of our full-time cohort, around about 40, I don't know what it's about, probably about 46,000 this year, I would think. But there are more part-time adult learners in the system as well. So one thing, and we recognise the value of adult education in tackling intergenerational inequality and poverty. So really breaking that cycle of successive families, successive generations being trapped in low work or no work. And it's the value of adult education and breaking that cycle but also adults having access to the skills they need, the training they need to be able to upskill, reskill, and retrain for a different type of labour market. We haven't detailed this specifically, set out in detail what this would look like, because we want to have that conversation with the sector and with political parties. But we clearly need a new entitlement to lifelong learning for every adult. So being able to access learning and skills, whether that's basic skills or higher level skills throughout your working career, is absolutely essential. We can't just front load investment and spend in an adult, so a young person's early life, and then say, off you go, 50 years in the labour market. You know, we all going to need to retrain and reskill, and there's a role of government individuals and employers as part of that mix. We know as well, we've talked about this for a long time, the importance of the recognition of prior learning for adults with the fewest qualifications. And I think we need a whole system approach to this, because there's a real opportunity for Wales here to really push on with the recognition of prior learning, I think, particularly for migrant workers, but also for adults, you know, currently living in Wales with fewer basic skills. We mentioned this a bit in the growing the economy, but clearly AI is going to be a huge challenge for current employers, current workers, but also the future workforce. But we, as well as thinking about what young people need or what learners need when they leave college, what's the role of FE as well in delivering community-based provision to enable people to understand and use AI both effectively and ethically. And we think colleges have got a really important role there. We want to really make sure we strengthen adult community learning over the next term. I think it's been, you know, a sector that has been, you know, faced quite significant cuts over the last 10, 15 years, but it plays a key role in offering that first step back into education, first step back into the workplace, but also that learning for better health, better well-being, and really becoming part of communities. We've seen the value when you go to the Inspire Awards, the Learning Work Inspire Awards. You see the impact of adult provision, and particularly adult community education, and we need to see much more of that rolled out across Wales. And then finally, certainly not least, something I'm really passionate about is about the impact and value of family learning. And at the moment, we don't have that family learning policy. We want to see a new family learning policy rolled out and developed, and a significant amount of work done on this already, which is great. But if you ever get the chance to go and see family learning provision delivered in colleges or schools, wherever it happens to be, you see the real value of and the impact of families learning together, and the impact it has on adults being able to progress with their own education, particularly their basic skills, but the example it sets for the children and young people about the importance of their own school, the importance of attending, the importance of working hard in school. It is potentially transformative for lots and lots of families. And we know it works. It used to work really well. It works elsewhere in the world. So I think we want to see Wales become a leader in family learning. And then finally, no slides to this, but finally, as well as the what, there's a little couple of lines really on the how. So on the financial side of this, you know, we can't do this without the money. We know we can't do this without investment. And there are a few things we want the next government to, with Meta, to pick up. So first one is we are asking, as we've done previously, for that longer term budgetary forecasting. So 3-year budgets to be able for colleges to be able to plan effectively the provision over the longer term. At the moment, you know, it is annual funding, and we are able to predict a little bit, but I think that 3-year budget certainty will really enable us to plan provision for the longer term. We are recommitting to, we're asking the next government to recommit to pay parity between lecturers and school teachers, but also commit to fully funding pay awards for other staff in the sector, so particularly work-based learning staff and business support staff as well. And clearly, I've already touched on this a little bit as well, just about that long-term commitment to the funding of ALM provision, sustainable funding for pastoral coaches. And one which I think we also want to pick up on is we want the next government to review regulation as well. We are a highly regulated sector already, and we think there's potential to have a cross-government, cross-organisation review of regulation in order to see what are the lower level of regulations, lower risk regulations that could be reviewed, could be reduced in order to free up resource for the sector to put into frontline teaching and learning. So I think there's bits there around the what we want to do, why we want to do it, but also a little bit there for government on the how we might go about funding and achieving some of this. So I think, John, that's it from me. Sort of hand over to you, hand over to any questions in the chat and anything else. But I mean, I think just hopefully all these are all policies and ideas you can get behind. Most importantly, from my perspective, they're all things that you recognise from your own settings and your own organisations as being relevant and correct about some of the challenges you want to face. I'm sure there's bits we're missing. Absolutely sure there are, but hopefully this is something which we will all support the next government getting behind.
Okay, diolch, David. Okay, so if I can open the floor now, if anybody wants to put their hand up, offer, ask any questions or offer any feedback, we've got time for that. Or alternatively as well, we can take some comments through the chat pane. Who wants to maybe go first? David Price, over to you. Thank you very much, David.
Just filling the silence. No, thank you very much. That was fantastic, and there's a lot there, Dave. Just one question. You mentioned Future Skills Authority. Could you just put a little bit more flesh on that? What would be this? Not necessarily the detail of how that would work, but what are we talking about? The breadth of its, the areas that it would touch. Because we have a lot of regulators already, don't we?
Sorry, I muted myself there. Sorry, David. Thank you. Yeah, no. So this actually came from lots of discussions with members and with the sector about how we use the quality, the availability, and how we use labour market intelligence and future skills forecasting to reshape and shape provision. And I think it's something in Wales that we have lots of different organisations doing some of this. So colleges individually, regional skills partnerships, etc. I think it's probably something we don't do particularly well as a country of 3 million people. I think it's quite fragmented, quite localised, quite regionalised. And it's not to criticise those organisations, but I think as a country of 3 million people, I think we could better pool our resources to be able to invest in high quality labour market intelligence, but also take that longer term lens. Now, a really good example of this, we're part of a 5 Nations alliance with colleges in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and ourselves. And we heard a presentation from Job Skills Australia, and I think it touches exactly what we're looking for. So if you, I don't know, we might be able to get, we might be able to pop the link in the chat to JSA. But they do some of this work particularly well. It's been relatively long established, and it does very good forecasting, but it offers that insight into, okay, here are the occupation shortages, and here's why we think we've got those shortages. Here's what the labour market's going to need in the next 10, 15, 20 years, and here's how we should be shaping provision. So if all we're doing is responding to learner demand, that's fine, and that gives learners, a pathway they're interested in. But I think if you combine it with high quality independent advice and guidance, and really strong labour market intelligence and evidence-driven kind of set of data, I think that's the missing link in some ways, I think. Now, that could be a Future Skills Authority. I would say that's more my idea than anyone else being particularly kind of like, this is absolutely the right thing. We need another regulator, we need another body. I don't really care where it sits, to be honest with you. I do think we need something independent. But, I think what the most important thing is that we have that quality and breadth of information that really enables it. And I think we all do little bits of it. But I suppose I would say Australia do it quite well. Lots of other countries, I'm sure, do it very well. Skills England are trying to do some of this as well. I think it's the bit we're missing at the moment at a Wales level.
Well, thank you both, Davids. Anybody else want to raise their hand in terms of next question? Is it Reese? Sorry, I can't quite read it. Gareth, sorry.
That's all right. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Dave, and congratulations to you and Rachel and the team on the manifesto. That's brilliant. Strongly support, as you know, your calls for a lifelong learning entitlement. Keen to work with you and the next government on that. Also support your call around long-term budget planning. You will find, as you know, lots of support for that across the whole education sector. And very interested to see as well your calls around being funded to deliver more level 4 and 5 provision and the short courses and modules, which is a big part of what the OU does and complements our own ask to be able to deliver more skills provision that we're currently excluded from. So I wanted to ask particularly on that, how you think colleges and universities can work together to deliver that kind of, if you like, alternative provision for learners, for their benefit and for economic benefit across Wales.
Yeah, and we launched yesterday in the Senate as well, the cross-party group, and I don't know if Rian's on the call, but Rian from Ed was really, I think, keen to stress, and we are as well, both the kind of synergy between this and some of their strategic ambitions as a regulator, but the importance of delivering this as a tertiary sector. So this is not a power grab of us saying we want level 4 and 5. We think that we've got a role to play in delivering provision at levels 4 and 5, which I think are the kind of key skills that we are going to need, and people progressing to level 6 as well, clearly. But we think we've got a role to do in that, but we absolutely should be doing it in partnership. We don't want to be duplicating provision. We don't want to be spending money twice and competing with anybody. It is about a partnership to deliver, but also I think, your own experience with the Open University, I do think there's a big part of that, isn't there, which is about alternative and more flexible provision, that if you're in work already, you're not able to access potentially a kind of university or even a college setting sometimes, but it's that flexible pathway. So we've got to work together to deliver that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Paul Smart.
Hi, lots of great stuff there. Very interesting presentation. Thank you. Obviously, it's going to be critical, the discussions with the future government, whoever that may be. That's, I guess, as unpredictable as it ever been. Is the intention to wait until after we know the result of the election before starting discussions, or are we putting out tentative feelers already to people who may form the future government?
Neither. We're not waiting, and it's not tentative. I think it'd be my sort of argument, Paul. I think the team have done a lot of this work already with political parties. So we're actually up at Plaid Cymru Conference on Saturday with the Fringe event doing some of this. But the team, I think Kevin Campbell's probably sick of Rachel and the team at the moment. The conversations we're having, conversations with Labour, conversations with Lib Dems, conversations with Reform about how we can, what their perspectives might be. So yeah, that work's already ongoing. So although we're launching this week, these things have been sitting in the background as things we've been asking for already for the last few months, really. So, like I said, the proof's in the pudding is how much of this we get into manifestos or into a programme for government or for whatever colour, whatever combination it looks like. But we certainly had really positive feedback on lots of aspects of the manifesto. I think, some bits where people are a bit more nervous potentially. But it's also, about how do we get FE and work-based learning to the front of the queue when it comes to investment and it comes to retention. Clearly, lots of focus at the moment on challenges in universities. And that, we have to solve that and we have to find a way through that. But at the same time, we need to make sure we don't lose sight of those kind of broader challenges for the FE sector as well. And, and I think what's really interesting is the extent to which we might see change in the next election, and to what extent some of the things that we value as a sector that we think are really important, such as, for example, really good example would be around quality, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism work, the work supporting the LGBTQ plus community. We think those things have got real value and are really important. I think as a sector, we need to find a way through. If the political colour changes, we nonetheless need to find a way through to make sure we're creating a space where colleges are places where all learners feel they belong and all learners feel comfortable and welcome. So we know there's going to be potentially particular challenges for the sector. But, we have a responsibility as well to our learners, I think, in some of that space, which is not the question you asked, but I want to make the point anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Paul. Any other, we've got a little bit more time if there are any further questions or comments.
There's a few in the chat, John, if that's...
Yeah. I think I've taken a look. Yeah, so I suppose the job skills Australia has been popped in the chat. If you do want to have a look at that, I was lucky enough to see that presentation as well. So it is something that's well worth a look at. I can see there's quite a bit of thumbs up from Mark Dacey in terms of the importance really of the further education sector and having a positive impact on wider communities. I think everybody would agree with that. Jared, in terms of listening to local knowledge and labour market data, I think that's very, very key, obviously, as well. Lucy, I won't try yours if you don't mind, as my Welsh certainly wouldn't cover that aspect. Nikki Lawrence just saying very interesting, but needs to go. And Sean, the same as well, in terms of really useful information across the sector. Is there anything else from anybody else? Does anybody else want to offer any further comments?
I just pick up Nikki's point about the data intelligence hub as well. Sorry, just on that, Careers Wales do a really good job of the prototype for kind of data intelligence hub, which tries to bring together data from across the kind of schools in the sector. And I think that's another bit that's missing actually, is that how do we use data that we already have to better understand attainment of learners, progression of learners, you know, talk about in that anti-racist context. What does the data tell us? What does it look like? What does it tell us about, you know, young people from kind of particular communities or adults from particular communities? We need to do better with data as well. And I think there's something that Nikki is talking about there, the data intelligence hub. I think that's definitely something for next government to pick up.
Great. Okay. Gwen Llian.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Bore da. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think, yeah, it's a really robust manifesto, and like everybody, really happy and willing to support. Just a question on the lobbying, David, in terms of targeting, you know, the education and skills parts of manifesto. Are we also targeting the content on economic policy and priorities? Because I think for us, this is about really positioning this manifesto and our provision as a core economic enabler and imperative. And I think landing it in that sphere really adds weight to what we're setting out. Diolch.
You're on mute, David.
Sorry, I'm trying to mute myself then. I didn't realize I did that. Apologies. Yes is the answer. In short, we're doing lots of that. So all pies are set up slightly differently. Some a bit more centralized. So you can have a conversation with the same person, but absolutely, yeah, talking to Luke Fletcher as the kind of economic lead, Plaid Cymru, it's Sam Kurtz, I think at the moment, isn't it? I think I'll cover that wrong. I think that's right. But you know, we talk to those people that we know are influential when it comes to the different parties, both on education and the economy, absolutely. And we're really calling, and we really interesting conversation yesterday. So Sam Rowlands, obviously North Wales, MS, who leads on the Conservative Manifesto development. Really interesting comment he made yesterday in the Senate, where he said, you know, his view is that it's businesses that create jobs, but government has two really key levers, one of which is infrastructure, and one of which is skills. And he sort of kind of sees, I think, that from their manifesto perspective, and we've spoken to Sam a number of times, and I think he talks about the positivity of going into local colleges, obviously, but colleges around Wales, and seeing that provision firsthand. But he said it's really that kind of skills lever that they are looking to prioritise in their manifesto. Plaid Cymru have already committed to something similar to what we've been calling for, which is a skills audit. Where we think we need to go a little bit further. It's not a one-off thing, but they're talking about a skills audit to understand what skills do we have as a nation, what are the gaps, how do we need to plug that. So we've already got a little bit of influence there already. But no, completely education and economy together, 100%.
There's a question, David, in the chat just around sustainability and green skills jobs. Do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, I mean, we put in mission 1, we explicitly talk about net zero. and I think, you know, if you any chance to go into some of the colleges, but all of the colleges, but you'll learn we had Jamie with us yesterday, a learner from Coleg y Cymoedd, and the Senedd. He was talking about his construction course, and I think, John, you asked him just to check, are you doing a sustainable construction, net zero construction, your course, and absolutely is a key part of it. You go to, you know, two good examples might be Pembrokeshire College or Group Clongowes Menai, where the work they're doing there around renewable energy, offshore, renewable energy, etc. We think, you know, if you want to get to net zero, or if you don't want to call it net zero anymore, you talk about energy diversification, whatever political parties want to call it, you absolutely need a strong FE sector that is delivering the skills that we need for young people to enter the industry, but also for adults to reskill and upskill as the needs of the economy changes. So yeah, we kind of see, we're really explicit in the manifesto about the importance of net zero skills. About, you know, we recognise that's not just about energy, it's about all of the kind of qualifications, understanding and mapping across to that as well.
Thanks, David. There's a comment in there as well from Amy, Careers Wales. If anybody's interested in the Data Intelligence Hub, to drop her an email. That sounds quite interesting. And then just from, I think it's Donna, Construction Skills Wales is a great short skills training provider based in Pontyclun. They've received some funding from React, Leith Portal, but offer some courses. So there's some opportunities there if anybody's interested in that as well. Okay. Are there any other is there any other feedback or questions? Okay, well, it's 11:10, so I think David, if you're happy to, have you got anything else further you want to add, or we'll call the meeting to a close otherwise?
No, nothing from me. Just thank you for your time this morning. I know how busy everyone is, and it's really appreciated you found time to come today. Absolutely,
and I suppose I'll second that. So thanks everybody for your time and participation today, and hopefully have a good week, and we'll see you all very, very soon. See you, everybody.